Hi everyone, it's Nicole here for Honeybee Stamps today with a Thankful For You card featuring a hexagon frame that I created with some basic hexagon dies, and I'm doing a lot of mixing and matching of different stamps from different stamp sets to create this thankful card today. So we've got the fox image from the brand new Warm Wishes stamp set. He is all decked out in his little fall sweater here. You could also make this a winter sweater. You can adorn it with any of these cute little images on here. Really kind of make it whatever you want. I'm definitely going for the more fall feel card here today. I gave him a little pumpkin on the front of his sweater to go with the theme of my card design. I have stamped my images on smooth white cardstock, and I'm coloring everything in with Copic markers. I've listed the colors I'm using across the top of the screen for easy reference. In addition to our adorable Warm Wishes fox, I decided to pair him with a blah Humbunny little critter here. So we've got a fox and a bunny. You could also take the foxes from the Feline Foxy stamp set. They would pair nice with this. Other bunnies. I love the images that are relatively, similar in size, so they're going to work well together. Our blah Humbunny, we've picked one of the bunnies, and then there's a scarf in blah Humbunny, and I thought that would work well with my Warm Wishes fox. We've got those two images, and then to go with our fall themed thankful card, I grabbed the pumpkin from the Acorn Sisters stamp set. We're moving on to his sweater now, and I wanted to go with fall themed colors. So we've got some deeper, darker blues with B34, 37, and 39. We're going to move on to our pumpkin on the sweater and our pumpkin with YR15, YR27, and E39. Once we get our pumpkin all colored in, I really like to go dark, kind of deep and dark with my darkest color, so I usually use an earth tone with my yellow reds. We are going to move on to the insides of the fox's ears with R00 and R02. And then the sweater is YR31, 24, and 27. So he's got this really cute kind of blue and yellow sweater with the orange pumpkin on the front. Muted colors works really great for fall. We'll move on to our bunny now. We're going to go in shades of warm gray and really be kind of careful with how much dark warm gray we're going to add, so the bunny still looks relatively white but still has that great shading and dimension. We've got warm gray 6 is our darkest color, warm gray 3, and then blending out with warm gray 00, warm gray 1 in a few little areas. We'll color the insides of the ears with R00 to pinken them up. Add a little pink to the cheeks as well. I always think that gives a little more character to the bunny. And then a little light pink on the bottom of the feet with R00. Then we're going to color in the scarf with some reds. This is that nice pop of red. I always like a pop of red on my cards. The red is going to come from the scarf in this case, which is our 35, 37, and 39. And then 3 hearts, which I decided later on after I kind of put my card together that I needed some little embellishment. Those are also from the Warm Wishes stamp set. That heart could be used to adorn the sweater if you want to, or it's great used on its own. I've die cut the images then with the coordinating Warm Wishes, blah Humbunny, and Acorn Sisters dies. And we're going to add a little detail to the eyes on our critters with a black glaze pen. also a white glaze pen, but we want to make sure the black is completely dry. So I like to go over the eyes with the black pen and then let that sit for a minute or two and come back with a white pen and draw back in the white detail. Let's go ahead and work on the front panel of our card now. I am taking a couple of Hexagon dies from the Hexagon Frames collection. You get a ton of hexagons in this. This is going to be a little bit different frame rather than the traditional maybe rectangle, square, circle, or even oval. I like this as a different kind of frame. I even like it when it's offset to one side. I think that's kind of a fun look as well. I'm centering it today. I'm using the smaller of the two I'm using, and we're going to die cut this from a piece of smooth white cardstock that's been trimmed to A2 size, so it's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And this, I purposely picked a hexagon that's going to cut through each side. So we've got a top and a bottom left that we're going to use here. And this, I should mention, this isn't Neenah smooth white cardstock. I use that for coloring my critters. This is actually Bristol smooth cardstock, and that's because I want to do some ink blending on my hexagon, and I get a much smoother result on Bristol smooth cardstock, so I went ahead and used that. On the top and bottom panels, I'm going to take some scrapbook adhesives, foam adhesive squares, and completely cover these. I want this to appear popped up, and then the hexagon shape itself is going to appear to be kind of framed up. So this is going to give it a little subtle dimension. I find these are nice low profile, so I use them a lot, and I want them not to dip anywhere. So I was pretty generous with my foam adhesive. I used 2 different sizes. Then we're simply going to replace the top panel on the front of a top fold card base, and we will do the same thing with the bottom panel, adding those foam adhesive squares and then popping this into place along the bottom edge. Now the hexagon left over from the center, this is where we're going to add some fun inking detail that's really going to highlight our adorable little critter scene that we're building inside this frame. So on the hexagon, we are going to ink this with a combination of carved pumpkin and rusty hinge distress ink. You could use regular distress ink or distress oxide. I decided to go with regular distress inks today. And we are going to start with the carved pumpkin distress ink, inking up that hexagon. So I'm just kind of double checking this before I get started. That looks good. And we're going to apply a nice kind of ombre effect where it's darker at the bottom and lighter at the top. I like to use a scrap piece of paper or packaging to keep my fingers out of the ink while I'm doing that inking, because you will see finger marks before the ink is completely dry. Along the darker edge of the bottom, and then gradually working my way up, I will apply a pretty light layer of rusty hinge. That's just kind of deepen and darken the orange color just a little bit. I don't want to completely take away that beautiful carved pumpkin. I just want to make it a little bit richer in color. We're going to spritz this with water from a distress sprayer now, blot it dry with a paper towel for that great distressing background. Very quick and easy. And then we'll put a nice layer of adhesive on the back of this panel and replace it or inlay it into our cutout that we created just a minute ago. Now this looks great as is, but I wanted to frame it up just a little bit. Let's go ahead and replace the little white highlights in the eyes and draw in some eyelashes on the bunny with a fine tip black pen. We can also adhere our critters before we get our frame. So I've got my fox, and They're going to be underneath the edge just a little bit on each side, so you may have to do a little trim work. I just trimmed off part of the foot on the fox and part of the foot on the bunny to make those work. We're going to line those up along the bottom edge. We're going to pop the pumpkin in front of the bunny, kind of like it's sitting there in front of him. And then, of course, put that red scarf around his neck. Look how cute the scene is coming together. I just love these little critters. I think this is really, really fun. Now, it's adorable as is, but I think a little frame is definitely going to help really draw your eye into these critters. So I'm going to take my white pen, go in, add some nice little highlights and things like that. You can see the thankful die that I have sitting out there. I did pre-plan the sentiments I wanted to use for my card prior to starting the design. I kind of had an idea of how I wanted this to go. So I have everything laying out, just double checking, making sure as we're doing the assembly portion of this card, so that at any time if something needs to change, for example, this is kind of the point where I see it's going to be really bottom heavy, and while that is fine, I think the top needs a little something, and so this is where I decide that I'm going to need those trio of hearts. Plus it's going to add that beautiful little pop of color towards the top of the card that really adds a lot of interest to the design. We've got our white highlights in place. We're going to take some gold mirror cardstock, layer the die that we used to die cut the inlay frame, and then one size bigger to create this nice thin frame here. And we'll die cut that from that gold mirror cardstock. And that's going to instantly create a frame, which is awesome. It's just wide enough that I think 1/8 inch score tape works super well with this. And instead of using a liquid adhesive and maybe making a mess or having to add a ton of glue dots, I am going to use 1/8 inch score tape. And I'm going to go ahead and put the score tape all the way around. We'll wait to trim the tips that are going to be hanging off each side, and we'll do that after we adhere the frame to the card. So I'm going to just simply peel off all my score tape, grab my card, and then we want to line this up. And I kind of fiddled with it a lot. I don't know why. I think it's exactly the same all the way around. I just want to make sure and get it centered. And then we'll pop that in place, grab some nice long scissors, and trim off those two sides. But it makes a huge difference framing up this little scene. So it looked awesome before, but I think the addition of the frame really just kind of brings it up another level and makes it a lot more interesting to look at. Pressing that score tape into the card so it won't go anywhere. Flip my card over, and we're just going to snip off those 2 points, and there is my perfectly framed up hexagon. So now we've got the thankful die, and in order to get this die cut perfectly, I'm going to use a little fun foam. But we need to add the stamping first, and because there's already quite a few layers on this card, and I probably should have stamped it before adding my foam adhesive, but I didn't, so I'm going to very carefully use a stamp positioner tool to stamp the words "For You" from the Grateful stamp set. And then I'll stamp those with clear embossing ink, and we're going to sprinkle on some gold embossing powder and heat set that to kind of match the look and feel of the frame and the design. I could have stamped it in another color, but I really thought the gold would look nicer with our gold frame, and then we're going to do an orange glittery dimensional die cut sentiment for the word thankful. So make sure and tap off all the excess embossing powder and then heat set that really quick. We're going to take a piece of fun foam, as I started to mention a second ago. back both sides with Stick It adhesive. This is my favorite way to do a dimensional die cut sentiment. And once we have both sides backed with the Stick It and it's super, super sticky, we're going to run that through our die cutting machine, and that's going to make sure that the adhesive is evenly applied to both sides of the fun foam. We'll replace one of the pieces of backing paper then and replace it with the glitter cardstock. And we're using an orange glittery cardstock here. I think the sentiment, I die cut it first. I didn't know if I would do a dimensional sentiment, even though I tend to like those with scripty die cut greetings. It really blended into my card too much, but by popping it up on some foam, it makes it a lot more legible to read, and I really like that on the card. So I've run it through my die cutting machine with the Stick It adhesive on both sides. We're just taking a scrap of that orange glitter cardstock. We'll run this through the die cutting machine, pop this out, and then it's nice and sticky on the back because we have backed both sides of the fun foam with a adhesive sheet. I have my little piercing tool to pop all those inside pieces out. We'll put that in place, add our hearts, and our card is done. Thank you for joining me today for this Thankful for You Hexagon framed up card. Please be sure to visit the Honeybee blog for more information on this project. Also, please subscribe to the Honeybee channel for more inspirational videos. Thanks for watching.